right, we are going to go ahead and get started. So hello everyone, I've met, I think all of you, but I'm Liz Hermansky with VIP Mortgage. I do business development for the Crawford team. And I also work with Michael Marlowe, who's Director of Agent Development here, and we run a coaching program called UX. So we launched it last year for agents. We've helped a lot of agents kind of double their business in 12 months was our goal. And we have really learned the importance of agents having a very strong business plan, because most don't. And I think a lot of people get into this business thinking like, oh, I can be my own boss, I can work when I want, and I'll get business and it'll work. But most people don't operate it like a business where you actually have a financials, P&L, income goal, all of that, unit goal, all of that down. So we're going to work through that with you guys today. But first, I always ask people, like, why are you here? Why do you come to a business planning class? What are you looking to get out of it?
To do just what you said.
Okay,
so
great.
Move our business from where it is to where we want it to be.
Okay, awesome. Ariel, what about you?
Motivation, concrete goals.
Perfect.
I'm here for the ride. I didn't come with intention because I came to the class before.
Good.
I wanted to see the branding part of everything, but
And they're
I
the
don't have
best
this
at that.
done, so this would help me get some direction.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. What about you, Jermaine?
I was listening, I have no question.
That's okay. I asked, why are you here? What do you want to, or why did you come to a business planning class?
Because I'm looking to learn everything, so really, truly I come to every class or every Wednesday.
Love it. Okay. Well, our goal is, a lot of people kind of do classes and give a lot of ideas and concepts I want to do in your business, but most agents don't go home and do it. They don't go home and do the homework. So you're going to leave today with a completed business plan, and you're going to leave with this filled out. We're going to do it right now. But basically, it'll have your take-home income at the top, what you want to make for the year, what your GCI needs to be to make that amount of money, what your sales volume needs to be to make that amount of money, how many transactions that is, and then how many buy-side and sell-side transactions that is. So we're going to dive right in and do some math. So everyone will need either a smartphone or a calculator, and I'll walk around and help you with it. But before we get started, I always like to ask people this question and write it somewhere on your packet on the back or whatever, and you're going to keep all this, so feel free to scribble. But so before today, how much money did you want to make in real estate, and how many transactions did you think it would require to do so? So write down those two numbers first. So before you fill this out, so in a year, in an annual basis, how much money, would you like to make in real estate, and how many deals do you think that is? So write that down first. And it'll be a good spot check at the end, because it's very interesting. Most agents aren't really that accurate with those numbers when we actually sit down and calculate them out. So, and as I said, Michael Marlowe is teaching with me. We do the coaching program UX. And I kind of explained to them today that we're going to leave with a completed business plan and we're going to get right in it. Okay, so everyone have that part done. Okay, awesome. Well, then we're going to dive right in. Actually, here, let's see if I missed slides. Okay, so we're going to dive right into the packet. And some of it, normally we do this in an hour and a half rather than an hour, so we're going to skip a couple things. The first thing we're going to skip is this page here, but I do want you guys to go home and do this. Like I said, normally I'm not a fan of doing homework because agents don't do it, but this is actually very important. You write your vision for your business. So if you had a perfect business in real estate, what would it look like? How much money would you make? How much would you work? What type of clients would you work with? And what else would be important in your life? So that is what I want you to write out, because it's very hard oftentimes to work towards a goal if you don't understand what the overall vision of that goal would look like. So that is what the top part is. And the second part is, why is success this year a must for you? So that's where you dig deep. That's kind of the why behind your drive. So either, you're paying off debt, you're saving for kids' college funds, you want to send somebody to private school, you want to take a great trip, you want a new car, or just simply, I need to make it as an agent. I need to make this amount of money to make it as a full-time agent. Whatever that goal is, I want you to write that there, because that's the hard part, and that'll help keep you working a little more efficiently and with a good mindset too. But we're going to start on page 3, and this is very important. So the way we work with our business plan is we work a little bit forward instead of backwards. Most business plans, you pick a number of what you want to make. We're going to find out actually how much you need to make first to determine what that number would be. So we want you to write down your living expenses, basically. And if you already have a great idea of those, write in your monthly total at the bottom. If you don't, take a few minutes and add them up. And obviously you can go home and really refine this later when you see your actual bills. But we want you to have a really good idea of how much money you need to live. Because oftentimes people grossly underestimate how much they're actually spending in their life. You know, do you guys have that happen ever?
Nope, I know.
You know exactly.
I know.
Good for you. So you're a tracker.
It's too much.
Yeah, but it does help to know that. So if you can come up with all these, you know, list out quickly, we'll give you a couple minutes, all these items here. Or if you don't even want to itemize it out right now, just come up with what you think your monthly total to live is here. And then at the bottom, we're going to figure out what that annual cost of living is.
And some of you were in the other class earlier where you set your 12-month goal. Now it's time to figure out what all your expenses are.
Yep.
All the way down to debts, utilities, everything.
And for people online, we can send you this packet as well. So go ahead and comment after Kelly posts and we'll email it to you. But it really helps. When I did this, it was very eye-opening to me. I analyze my budget quarterly. And every single time, it's surprising to me because there's something that I spent more money on, way more money on than I thought. So great business owners, and you really have to look at yourself as a business owner in this business to be successful. Great business owners know their budget. Just like she said, I know exactly how much I spend because that helps you analyze ROI on your time, your money, your investments in your business. So it's very important to know those costs. I'll give you a minute there.
Any questions on it? Or?
Everyone have that number?
Yeah.
Or close? Okay, then we're going to move on to the next page. So at the top you see, but it says, but how much do you really want to make? So if the number on the bottom of the page before is how much you have to make to live, what about how much would you like to make? That would allow you to go on a vacation or buy yourself another pair of shoes or do whatever else, you know, you send your kid to camp or whatever it is. What would be a very happy number for you? We want you to put that in that box, and that's going to be your target take-home income for the year. And with this, do be a little bit realistic. Obviously, we would all love to make $1 million, but I wouldn't put $1 million on there unless you're ready to really hustle, and we'll show you how many transactions that's going to be. But it should be a realistic number that, you know, is realistic with the amount of energy and time you want to put into your business to get to. But also allow you to pay your bills and have a little bit of fun. So that number here needs to go on the very top of your pyramid on your success plan. You can transfer it there. We can give you guys a second copy too if you want to make changes later. Okay, so now to make that much money, you have to obviously pay taxes though as well. So how much money do you need to make to be able to pay your taxes and still take home that number there? So that's what we're going to figure out next. So on the page 4 on the bottom, it basically is having you figure out your tax rate to figure out your target taxable income. So depending on your income level, I think a great rule of thumb, most agents are at 20% tax rate. Some are even less, 15% depending on your write-offs. If you're making over $150,000 in income, you should probably plan on 30% tax rate. So it just depends on where you're at. I would do somewhere between 20 and 30% would be my suggestion. And we can help you figure out the math here. But as you see, and raise your hand, we can walk you through it. But basically, it should make whatever number you had before a bigger number. And the numbers are going to keep getting bigger for a couple more pages here, and then we're going to break them down and they'll get a lot smaller.
And it'll make sense when we
yeah.
going.
So in this example here, if your target take-home income is $90,000 and you're at a 30% tax rate, you need to make $128,571. So a significant increase, obviously. So if you need help, raise your hand. We'll walk around. but that's going to bring you to your target taxable income. Everyone get that?
Did you get it? Yeah. Okay. So, I'd say that. That's okay.
So bigger number, huh? A little bit scarier?
Ah, I gotcha.
Did everybody get that number in there?
Everyone have it? Okay, but in addition to the government, do you have it back there, Angela? You good? You got it? Okay, do you want help? Jermaine, do you have it? Okay, well, don't be afraid to ask for help. We
That's
want this
pretty
to be
crazy,
good
huh?
for you.
So,
This
it's 100,000.
should be 25. So that's why, so actually, you're what you're gonna do.
Yeah, so you're gonna, so if this is the amount you wanna make, right, you're gonna take that and divide it by this.
I'll divide it, okay.
Yeah, so take the 100,000
Oh, this should be.
divided by 0.7
Yeah, so this part is actually right.
equals,
So you're gonna do.
you get your equal sign there.
142. 142.
Oh, it's right there, okay, yeah.
But usually I see.
Okay, so everyone have that number?
Yeah, that's last, so divided by, yeah. So what they do here is they do this calculation, so it's 30, that's just 0.30, that's the tax rate, you already know that, but then you take the 1 minus that, gets that, so
But I
that's.
thought we were supposed to do 20%, she said 30% is over 150.
Well, that's just
Yeah,
it's a
25.
conservative tax rate. You don't have to check, cause tax rates are gonna change anyway in 2018, so whatever that is, you know, the new tax laws, check with your tax accountant, find out what your tax rate is, and you can get very specific, but this is just a good conservative number
Yeah, we
to,
gotta move.
help you calculate that. You can always change it when you find out exactly what your tax rate is.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, so everyone got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, we are now gonna figure out, in addition, you have to pay your brokerage, right? There's fees that are associated with, that your brokerage takes from you. All of you are my home group agents, and you're lucky that your brokerage doesn't take nearly as much as some of the others. The first page is for commission split brokerage, where, you know, Keller's, Remax, where you pay 20 or 30% of every deal to your brokerage. You guys are not that, which is awesome. But let me see here. I'm trying to figure out. There are still costs associated. So just to hang your license here, $25 a month is $300 a year. And then at an average sales price of $275,000, which is Maricopa County standard, 3%. Let me see here. I'm trying to figure this out as I go. 8250. Okay. So there's a couple ways we can do this, and we'll help each of you individually. So if you have an idea of how many units you're going to do, we can figure it out actually pretty quickly based upon $300 transaction fee times your number of units. Or if you don't know that, we're going to do it as a percentage, just like a commission split would be. So I think that's what would be the best way for most agents who don't know exactly how many deals they're going to do. So we're going to do it that way. It's 0.03%. is the commission split here on an average deal size of $275,000. So for at a $275,000 deal, you would make a 3% commission, $8,250. Your $300 transaction fee into that is 0.03%. So we're going to figure that out here, just like in step one at the top. So we're going to do 0.03 as your commission split percentage. So we'll walk around and help you, but basically it should make the number not too much bigger, because it's, like I said, not as big of a fee, obviously.
But
But,
yeah, I know the number, you're supposed to do that plus that.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you
So
put
team
that?
split.
Well, you're gonna take, first you're gonna take the 1
Yeah.
minus the 0.03 to get this total.
Actually, that's
So
a really
you're
good
gonna
point.
do
And if you're
1
on a
minus
team that
0.03
takes a
equals
team
whatever
split, we
that
do
is.
need to account for
Then you're
that.
gonna take your taxable income and divide it by that to get your total
So
number.
you take this number
So did you do this part yet?
and then,
Yeah.
Okay, so clear out there, and then do 1 minus 0.03, so it's 0.97. So then you're gonna
So
take
that
your,
number,
taxable
Then
income
I
and
don't
divide it
think
by
I can figure out what's
0.97.
this.
So,
That
so I'm doing,
is, yeah, you're unsure.
Yeah, so that's 0.03, that equals
Yeah.
0.97. Then you're gonna take your taxable income that you had on the other page, the other number that you had,
Yeah, if you don't,
you put that amount in there. And then you're gonna divide
So we
that.
did it by deal, so then the average transaction is
Divide it by
80. So let's do it this
0.97.
way.
You know, so E-class is big, is there 3 here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I'd say, I say 1,500, that's
Okay,
what
so
I
that
would.
means I need to do 35 instead of here. I did it by transactions.
Okay, so
I
now,
did
Well,
the
it's
8250 by
$3,000 higher, it
transactions
should be
into
more
that
than
number,
that.
so it comes up with 35 deals a year.
we'll just figure out
did
volume
you do it by
first.
0.97?
So,
I did one.
so I think you skipped
Yeah.
ahead a little
Oh,
bit.
did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
mhm.
Which
So
is
next,
right.
we're gonna figure out sales
See
volume.
here,
Okay,
we did
your GCI, so
130,000
here,
by 0.8, it was
What did you-
162.5.
so you figured out your commission split percentage?
Yeah,
Is
that-
that, oh,
That's what I
that's
was
what
doing.
you're trying to
Yeah,
figure out,
yeah.
okay.
This-
So I
Because-
still would do it this way.
You would
Unless,
still do it that way?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 20
Yeah.
Because you're
there,
now,
so
you're not on a
that's
team
why
anymore,
Right,
right? So
right.
you're not paying the team
Larger-
split, so try it.
huge difference.
We can try it both
Okay,
ways.
so the percentage would
Mine's a
be
little
0.03,
20%.
Mhm.
and this number is the number I wanna make, correct?
No, divided by 100, that just gives you
Oh,
the
by
number,
100,
yeah.
okay.
Brokerage.
So
so they-
0.03 divided by 100.
That's what we're
Um,
doing wrong.
yeah.
We're dividing it by the number we
So
wanna make.
ours,
Um,
we have a smaller brokerage, we only, like you said, 0.03, so 0.03 versus 20%. Obviously, they have to
0.0003.
pay out more, they have to make more.
And then.
True, true.
1 minus point.
And that's why you're saying
three.
the $3,000 that I'm saying is
7.
not that much.
And then,
Okay.
so your number,
Um,
your
but yeah, I
target
get it.
taxable income on this
Okay.
sheet.
And then,
Now divided
once
by
you're done there,
this.
you're gonna take this,
Yeah.
so this is if you had a cap, but you don't have that, you don't have to worry about that,
Yeah.
so just, once you get to that part, you're done there.
So it should be just a little bit bigger, not too much.
286.5.
Got it.
So
'Cause
yeah.
that's why I was saying, the
That's-
easier route,
So it's
I
like
could've
$85 more.
what I did
That doesn't
before
make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
is the 125.
That's why I jumped to the-
The number of
Yeah.
deals.
Which,
We'll
that's
try it
how
that way
much
and see what we get.
So if number of
Taxes
deals,
I
if your
paid.
average deal is 8250, so if you do 286 divided by 8250, brings me to 35 deals,
So then you're gonna wanna do.
which is exactly what I guessed. I said 30 to 35.
Oh, good. So then you're gonna wanna do
36, I think.
35 times 300
Minus 300.
plus 300. So yeah, this is, I think, way overestimating.
Equals 10,500 plus 300.
And that's way overestimating, but still, you'd rather
And you're saying those are my
overestimate.
fees.
Mhm.
That is overestimating
It's way
because,
overestimating.
well, actually, it's accurate though. If you think about it, it's
Yep.
$300 per transaction.
Just looks different.
So if you,
Yeah, I mean, put it in. We're gonna actually figure out based on your sales volume now too,
Okay.
so, but yeah, I
Okay,
would say,
then we'll start the next
put
step.
that,
so,
Just
so
a
add
minute.
10,000 or whatever we decided to that, so
okay,
like
so
35
income
times
before
300.
commission split, well, your targeted income, okay, so your income before
Get
commission
it?
split is 286. And then after split would be oh wait, this isn't, for capped commission.
Yeah, so you have to do it, so here, cap commission, so you're gonna do
Okay.
your target here
Mhm.
plus this number.
Good question.
Right,
Once
right,
you
right,
get
okay.
that.
I was thinking that one didn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Thank you.
Did you get yours?
I went by number of transactions because it's a low, so
I'm
it's
trying to
just.
stay on the East Valley until traffic dies down.
Yeah, I'm gonna do workout
I don't know why
class,
this is
Okay.
in
in Tempe, so it's 20 minutes
That's
out.
too many zeros,
without
right?
traffic, so I don't know.
No, but it's not working out right.
No.
Yeah, it didn't work
That's
out
why we
right
were
for
trying
me.
to, we were getting the right
So
numbers
I'm
in
gonna
there.
see if
I did Goodyear and then
the numbers
Arrowhead,
wrong, let's see.
and
So-
then North Scottsdale,
I would do the same
Kentucky,
thing.
I'm just like, today, around town.
286, let me try it one more time. 286
I wouldn't
divided
touch the 10 right now, or when I go back, if I was you.
987.
It doesn't bother me though.
Or I would probably, if I were you at this time, I would take the 202 and then go up a little bit, hit the 303, go
You
around.
know what it is,
I like
it's 3%.
near the 10.
This needs to be a 3, this is 2
Ah.
zeros, that's
Three
exactly what it
zeros.
is.
No, I was just telling her.
That makes more sense.
Okay.
Because, okay, so 3
Let's try that this way.
divided by 3 divided by 100 equals 0.03.
Yes,
So
we had
let's
another
start
zero
there.
in it, that was the problem.
0.03.
Well, it should be point, it's three, but this is, it should be just point three.
Just
That
three.
should just be 3.
Yep, just
Okay.
3.
Okay,
Alright, you guys get it?
Getting there. We're
so
getting there.
try it again and see if it's the same.
So then we have 1 minus 0.03 equals,
So then you use
0.7.
this number divided by that.
okay.
So let's see which one's closer.
86 divided by 0.97 equals 294.
And that's
So-
actually really close.
Yep, that was really
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
It's a little less.
Yeah.
That was really close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it make sense? Okay, so Ariel, did you figure yours out?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now that tells us basically the amount of money you need to make to pay your brokerage splits or transaction fees or whatever that it is, or if you're on a team, your team splits as well, and pay the government and still take home that nice number that you're happy about. But there are some additional business expenses we want you to add in, and that's on the bottom of page 6. So it breaks down here all the things that a typical agent would need to include in their business. So board dues, so whether you're Sevrar, SAR, PAR, WEMAR, you have dues associated with your association membership, and that obviously covers your national dues as well. And unless you're a brand new license, the application fees will not apply, but for most agents, it's at least $1,000 a year just for association dues, MLS, and Supra access. I always like to be a little bit conservative, so I would use $1,500 as kind of a baseline number there for yourself. However, that's if you don't pay for any marketing. So think about that. If you pay for marketing regularly, or if you have a CRM that's X amount a month, or a website that's X amount a month, or something like that, those costs all need to be added in as well. So so my opinion is the majority of agents spend at least $200 a month on miscellaneous things, whether it be website, CRM, marketing for a listing, photo, whatever it is. So I like to be a little bit conservative with this so that I end up with more money in my pocket at the end of the year rather than less. So depending on what you think you spend, if you think you spend $100 a month on marketing type stuff, add in an extra $1,200 to the annual total. If you think $200, and there's some agents that spend $1,000 a month on marketing stuff. So depending on where you're at in your business, I would either use $100 maybe as the minimum, and then go up from there depending on the scale of your marketing.
And you're talking just marketing, or are you talking like all your expendables as well?
Put them in, yeah, might as well. And here it has oftentimes, it lists desk fees, so that would only be if you rent an office space, or, education. CE classes are free here, but a lot of people wait, and then they have to pay to get them all done at the end of the year, so those type of things. But I would definitely put in any business, any expense that you can count on in your business, put it in here. It's better to account for it ahead of time than to be surprised by it after the fact. So try to come up with an annual number for yourself. Remember, as I said, as a minimum, that should be $1,500 for the year, and then it can go up from there. Everyone have it? Okay, then let's go to the next page. Now we're going to add all that up to get a GCI, what the biggest number on here is going to be. So the gross commission income, the total amount of commission money you're going to need to make to pay your business expenses, pay your brokerage, and pay your taxes. And that number is going to go right on your sheet, right here on the second row on the left.
And that's your income number before the commission split, plus the expenses.
Do you guys have any questions on it? Everyone have it? So the number, kept going up. Got a little bigger and scarier as you went up, but now we're going to go down, and it's going to go backwards, and it'll be a lot more manageable. So most people, this example, they started at $90,000 was how much money they wanted to make for the year, but they really need to make $166,000 to actually take home $90,000. So it should be very eye-opening. Most people don't really realize what you have to account for, so that's why we do this. So did everyone have their GCI number? Yeah? Okay. What do you think? Yeah? A little daunting or no?
A little more than I average, well, I thought, yes.
Yep, most people it is a little more than they actually thought, but now we're gonna break it down and it'll be a lot more manageable. Okay, so now we're gonna figure out then how many deals is that? And we're gonna do that first by figuring out what your sales volume will need to be, and then break it down to average price point and number of homes. So, for your, on page 8, you're gonna take your GCI and divide it by your average commission amount. So, as it gives an example here, that their GCI is 166,000. 3% is the average commission amount for most agents. If you typically discount your commission, or give friends and family deals, things like that, then you may want to go down to 0.02 or 0.025 to allow for that. If you're an agent that never discounts your commission percentage, then you can leave it at 0.03. So that will tell you your sales, your volume. So it should be a huge number in the millions. Does anyone want to share when they get it?
With sales line?
Yeah.
So 36 times
5.66 million.
5.66 million. So awesome. So that that's I'd say a very good manageable sales volume. And if you think of it that way, in homes, not income, it makes it a little bit easier to think about, right? So yeah.
You do not
What's the
have
average
sales
sales price?
Well, we're gonna go to that right now.
Yep.
So that's what the next step is. So don't worry about that yet. So what is your guys' average sales volume?
9,900,000.
Perfect. Yeah. So now we're gonna figure out how many homes that is. So Jermaine, do you have yours? Okay. Ariel, you have yours? Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna figure out how many homes that is. So it depends on your average sales price. Now, in Maricopa County, the last time I checked, it was 282. I went off 275 in that example I gave earlier. But if you always work in a specific area that homes are 350, then use that. If you work homes, if you're doing a lot of online leads or work with maybe first-time home buyers or GPA programs, do a little bit less. Do 225 or 220, whatever you think it is. You're going to divide your target sales volume by that average sales price of homes that you work in to figure out a target number of transactions. And this number should be a lot easier to swallow. So let's raise your hand if you have questions.
Some of you did this the opposite way, and we did it units, and then we figured out volume.
Yeah.
So.
Everyone have it? We good to move on? Okay, so once you have that, you should fill that in here. So now we should have these first foreigns. That goes in the transactions required box in the middle here. So you should have the first 4 boxes filled out on your pyramid. Everyone got that? Now we're going to figure out average, basically how many buyers and sellers that is. Thank you, Michael. Sorry. So anyone want to shout out the number of transactions? I'm going to pick on you if you don't.
Current?
No, that's needed.
Oh.
Yeah, so,
36.
Okay, so 36 transactions. So of that, now we have to figure out how many buyers and how many sellers. So how many, in your business, you have to figure out what percentage of buyers versus sellers you do in your business.
50-50.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well that's great. 50-50 is great. Most agents, I'd say, especially newer agents, are more buyer heavy because they don't get as many listings. So depending on where you're at in your business, we can kind of help you figure it out. I say, the majority of agents, in this market right now, our inventory is low, so there are people that have a more equal buyer and listing business, but in other marketplaces, it's not uncommon for an agent to be 90% buyers. So it just really depends on your style. I think what type of lead generation you do.
And I know, Jermaine, you're newer. You're about 5 months, 6 months?
7.
Yeah, 7 months. Okay. So for those of you that are newer, this number you're going to use just like an average number. Yeah. And then next year you can go back and look at how many buy sides, seller sides you
You'll
have, so you can
track
plug
it.
that in. So this is something you're going to do every year. So every year you can go back and look at last year and then plug your numbers in this year, so you can have projections for each year.
So if you guys are 50-50, then you'll be 18 of each. So we're going to write that here on the left sides of your pyramid. Does anyone else have questions on that? I'll walk around and see.
And then you did a volume, or 132, so you did that. But then you did back here, you should have done, you're going to take that.
Ariel, do you have yours?
I have a pretty
You're
good
gonna, you
idea.
calculated here.
And
by
obviously
your
round
target
up if there's
TCI,
decimals
you
too.
divided it by
Oh,
that
million.
I can do some
0.03 or by
figures and go by her.
0.025.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I
then
would
you
say
should
so.
have
I
gotten
think
into the
most
millions,
people,
whatever that
you know, the
once you
average,
plug that
within the
number
first
in-
3 years of being an agent, most agents don't take on as many listings because they're not as comfortable going on listing appointments because they don't feel that they have, you know, the experience yet, which
You're
you
not
do
gonna
have it.
take-
You shouldn't be uncomfortable, but that's very common for agents to be a
You're
little bit
gonna take
uncomfortable
that-
trying to get
that
listings. It's
volume
easier to handle a
number,
buyer.
Okay?
Okay,
You're
so
gonna
everyone
take
got
the
that,
volume
and we're
number,
gonna
you
keep moving
divide it by the
on.
average sales price of 275.
And this is where, so that's the total number of closed buyers and sellers you need to work with, but you don't necessarily close every buyer or seller that you work with. So now we're gonna account for fallout. So on page
That's on
10,
page
it
8.
talks
So
about
on
your
page 8, you
success
should
rate
take
with
your-
sellers. So here's where you're gonna take your
Yeah,
success rate.
volume
So
number
basically,
divided by
if you
270
think,
is 16.4 units.
if you sell, if you get a listing,
Now we're gonna figure out
what percentage of the
how many
time
of
do
those
you
are gonna
sell
be
it?
buyer
In this
transactions and
market,
seller
it's
transactions.
pretty high.
So, like they were
So
saying,
I would say
90%
90% of the time, at least. I mean, you can do 100 if you want to be safe, but in this market, if it's priced appropriately, it's going to sell unless there's some glaring defect with the property. So you can use a success rate with sellers that you're comfortable with to figure out the number of listings required to close that many listings.
Buyer side, seller side,
So,
they're even,
you know,
let's just
and
say
for a lot of
17
people, they just add on one
8.5 or
listing. I know that
8.5,
sounds
8.5.
silly, but rather than doing the math,
Put
but
that there, and
they
then
figure, you know, no matter how many deals this year, I'm probably only gonna have one listing or two that I can't sell.
Makes sense?
Does that make sense? Hi. All right, so does everybody, does that make sense to everyone? So that means, so for you guys, if you need to close 18 listings, what are you gonna count for fallout on those listings? 2 maybe, at most?
Yeah.
So you'll probably need to take 20 listings to close 18 listings. Is kind of the way to look at it. So it should be a bigger number. Does that make sense for everyone? And then next, we're gonna figure out how many listing appointments you need to go on to get those 20 listings. Does that make sense? So here, this depends a lot on your style of lead gen. The best agents in the business say that they get about 50% of the listing appointments that they go on. Even Russell Shaw, who does more than anybody in our market as far as listings, he says he only gets 50% of the listings that he goes on the listing appointment. However, if you are a heavily referral-based agent, or don't do a lot of online leads and those type of things, your percentage rate will probably be higher than that. If you're mostly going with friends and family to list their homes, you're gonna have a higher likelihood that you're gonna get the listing. So it's up to you, and you know, it depends on how conservative you wanna be. But for example here, this person said that they needed 34 listings. They think that they get it 80% of the time. So if they go on 10 listing appointments, they're gonna get 8 of them. Then that's the number of target listing appointments you need to go on for the year. So what do we think? How many people think they're 50-50 with listing appointments? No? More? Higher?
Higher?
What do you guys think?
We've only not gotten one.
Awesome.
So
And that's probably, are you guys doing a lot with Sphere, friends, family, or have they mostly been?
No,
it's been everything.
That's
they're
great.
earlier.
Well, you guys are good then. Nice work. Angela, what about you?
Sold at 90%. So let's say.
What do you think?
Question?
How many listing, like, what's your percentage success rate with a listing appointment? So if you go on 10 listing appointments, how many do you get?
I'd say like
Okay, awesome. So then 80%. So that you'll use that for your success rate here. So, anybody need questions?
Success rate.
Okay, so that number is gonna go here in listing appointments, but I want you to have 2. I want you to put a line in the middle of that big rectangle box. And on the left side of the line, I want you to write your annual number of listing appointments. And then on the right side of that box, I want you to break it down, divide it by 12, to figure out how many listing appointments you need to go on a month rather than a year. So on right here in the listing appointment box, so draw a little line here. and then write annual and monthly. I think it's a lot easier for most agents to look at things in shorter goals. So like a 30-day goal versus an annual goal, because otherwise what happens? If you slack for a month, you're like, oh, I have 9 months left, I'm not as worried about it. But if you look at it as a monthly goal, it'll really help you to stay focused. So, and it makes it more manageable. So, yeah, perfect. So, for you guys, your annual goal is 22, but you know that if you go on 2 listing appointments a month, that will keep you on track to hit your goal for the year. It's very manageable, right? It's a lot, in my opinion, the smaller the numbers are, the easier they are to swallow, and then it helps you celebrate the small wins as you go. So that way it really keeps you motivated and excited throughout the year. So and then if, depending on your number, it can be bi-monthly, so I need to go on 1 listing appointment every 2 months, or 1 listing appointment a week, if you have a lot of listings. So whatever it is, think of it in a smaller number. So everyone have that? Yes, yes?
Yep.
Head nod?
Everybody got it?
Okay. Now
Yep.
we're going to talk about buyers. Oh, do you need help? Jermaine or Angela, you need it?
Need help?
As far as, this is just really what we do.
Yes, sorry. So, yeah.
Target buyers.
So your number of total transactions, right, was, what was it? 25, so 25. Yeah, so this is your closed buyers, closed sellers.
This
So,
either side.
yeah. And then the next line is actual listing appointments or buyers. So just put a little line. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So we're at 20?
So just put a little line right there. And then put 20 here, and that's your annual goal, and then divide that by 12 to get your monthly goal. We haven't done this, that's where we are, we haven't gone any further than that. Yeah, so that'll tell you that you need to go on like 1.5 listing appointments a month, probably. Might be a little higher than that, or 2. So if you make your goal 2 listing appointments a month.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can round it up to 2. So yeah. Or you can think of it as basically 1.5 a month. Okay, so everyone has that side. So it's a little more manageable when you think of it that way, right? Now we're going to actually look at buyers. And this is basically, we're also going to factor in your success rate with buyers to figure out if you need a certain amount of closed buyer deals per year, how many buyer appointments or buyers you need to be working with or engaged with. So you have to think about what's your success rate with buyers. And in my opinion, they use 90% as an example here. I think that's pretty high. I do not think that you're going to close 90% of your buyers. That's assuming that they A, qualify, B, can find a house that they like, which right now is a really big challenge. So I would almost go a lot lower than that right now to like 50 or 60% would be my suggestion. Because I know, even on the lending side, we have tons of people that are pre-qualified and ready to go. They just can't find a house. And that could be, 6 months down the road till they actually find one that they want. So that number, and then basically you divide your necessary number of closed buy-side transactions by your success rate with buyers to figure out how many buy-side clients you need to work with. So it should be a bigger number, but still pretty manageable. Does that make sense? So for you, yeah. Oh wait, no. So you were on. You already. Oh wait. Okay. So 30. Yeah, that's fine. So you can use salary or something.
Take your buyer side.
Yeah, we do.
Would you have your buyer side transaction for 30?
You're going to do
Twice?
So this is saying that of the listings you get, you sell 80% of them. And this is not the
I don't mean to
listing
sound
you go on.
No, I know.
So we just missed this stuff.
It's just
But,
40,
so they'll probably find.
And what is
So
that?
yeah, so that means that you put 20 here. And then you think you get 1 out of every 2.
So you have to go on
Like
50
1,
buyers
10
side
listings,
appointments.
how many do you get? You said 80, right? So this.
And then over here, back on this page, you have your listing appointments, your buyers,
Yeah,
you
is
And then you're gonna list out, okay, now that I know how many buyer appointments I need, how many listing appointments I need to get this transaction, you're gonna write down the activities that you're doing to get there.
How many, like, how much fallout will you have of not being able to sell?
Then you can divide it by 12 and know how many months you wanna go on. So if it's 50 buyer side, divide it by 12.
Okay. So actually, that's
We
probably
need
the
to
same,
do
yeah, so do
4.1 listings buyer presentation.
and then it's
Yeah, you can do 5, so 5 buyer appointments a month to hit your goal. You guys good?
Yes.
So we gotta do 20 point, and then our success rate, once we get those 20, let's say, what's our success rate is, once we get speeds, let's call it, do it the same way we did with the buyers. So we came up with the number 30 in order to get 18.
Yeah, so you get 18 divided by 6 gives you 30, that's how many buyer side appointments you have to go on. Then you can divide that by 12 to know how many per month.
Okay,
So
I see.
like right now, half is
I
inventory
was gonna
logo
go how they said it.
that,
You have your dropout rate,
it's
so
really
you
hard
can
for
do
buyers
20,
to
and then you
find
have
houses
how
or
many
to actually
listings
get
or
under
how many buyers
contract on
are
a house.
required.
So agents
So
are
the
having a harder
success
time.
rate, it makes it even higher. So I was
So,
gonna say, do the same thing with
20
this.
by
These
0.9.
buyers,
I
22.
thought that would be a little higher, but I guess
This
it's
is when I
not.
worked.
So that's your listing appointments that you target, divide that by 12, that's how many listing
did
appointments.
you work with
Right.
to
Per
get
month,
to that?
Right,
Yeah.
we've got that
So,
here, we
like,
need about 2 of them.
Did you have double that many
I
that
say
you were working
3
with
since we
that
don't,
never closed?
12 months out.
Or did you have, you know,
But still, that's how that works out, so.
Then,
or just?
now you can have those for both sides.
Uh-huh.
So you already talked about the different business activities that you're gonna do.
Right.
So now you can, yeah, even narrow it down even more, so you know you're doing open houses, lead generation, all that, but then
Yeah.
what else do you do on the seller side, if you can add any other activities that you're doing there.
65.65.
You know.
That's one of the
Okay, yeah.
things
And then-
that
Estimated success rate.
So then a bigger number. So
difficult with how you
8 divided by
market specifically to sellers.
Well, there's a number of different ways, and even through conversion, you can, through the home evaluation
that.
side,
12 and then
there's a lot
1.
of things you could do. I mean,
Okay,
there's 30
guys,
days,
so we're gonna
60
keep
days,
going
70 days,
here.
you can- sometimes
We only have 10 more
you can
minutes, so let's
help
keep
them.
it going.
There's all kinds of different things you can do.
Okay, so does everyone have their pyramid filled out up till this point?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So how does it feel? Does it feel good? Those numbers are more manageable, right?
Yep.
And now the question is, how close were you to your original guess when you were just guessing on what you needed for your business? The numbers you wrote down at the beginning of the class. Off by 4, right? So that's significant, right? So four deals or 4, yeah. So 4 deals is significant. I mean, if it's $8,000 a deal, that's $32,000. So that's a lot of money. So that's most agents are generally not exactly dead on because they don't take into account all their business expenses and stuff too, and taxes.
But
What about
as you go every quarter,
Yeah.
every 6 months, you're gonna learn what those expenses are. I know we talked to you guys earlier in the class, what your fixed hard costs are, your transactions, you need to know what they all are so that this becomes better and easier. So
Yeah.
as you track all those numbers every year you do this just gets a lot easier.
And the goal, is basically to tighten up your P&L so much that if you put this much into your business, this is exactly what you're going to get out of your business. So this helps you at least kind of have a great idea in the meantime while you're still tracking. But now, below that we break it down into activities, right? So buyers and sellers don't just magically show up at your door. So what activities are you going to have to do to actually get that many buyer appointments or listing appointments? So this is dependent on the person, obviously, and what type of lead gen you do or marketing, things like that. But I would recommend everyone to obviously have their database as one of their pillars. So that should be on both buy side and sell side. But you can't just have database, that's not tangible. So you need to have 24 touches to my database a year. It needs to be specific and measurable. That will help you stay on track with your goals as well. So does that make sense? So that can be both a buyer activity and a seller activity, but it needs to be quantifiable. So I think, 24 to 30 touches to your database a year is pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's your target range. Yep.
Now, what other buy-side activities are there? Open houses. So for most agents that don't want to dump a ton of money into their business, open houses is the #1 lead gen activity for buyers. But again, has to be quantifiable. So Jermaine, I'm going to pick on you. How many annual buyer appointments or engaged do you need to have?
15.
15?
50.
50.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A year, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so break that into a month, so just over 4 a month. So if you need to be working with 4 buyers a month, how many open houses do you need to do to be working with 4 buyers a month? So that's how you kind of need to look at everything. In my opinion, or the numbers are generally 1 in 33 people through an open house results in a deal. So if you need 4, I would times 33 by 4 to figure out how many people you need to get through your open houses. So what is that? 33 times 4.
1 of the 33.
Well, you guys, if you've been to the business development class,
Yeah.
I go through these numbers. So by the average people that come through an open house, by the number of 1 in 34, 1 in 33, 1 in 34 for an opportunity. If there's 5 to 8 people through, we went down 1 a week would get you this many leads. 2 a week would get you this many leads. You can break that down. If you want to come to that class, I go right into those numbers. And so I think at 36 deals a year, you're around 3 or 4 three a week.
I just did the
to
numbers
hit that.
for Jermaine. So
So if you're 4,
so for him, he has
4 deals a month, it's going to be around 4. That's like 4 open houses a week if you're hitting the average numbers. But you got to track your conversion rate anyway. So where it might be 1 in 34, there's a chance you might get 2 in 20. However you track those numbers. But the average numbers, you're going to be somewhere around 3 open houses a week to get that number.
Yeah. So for you, if it's 132, potential opportunities a month, so you need to divide that by how many people come into each open house. Yeah, our open houses. So if an average open house gets 10, that would be 13 open houses a month. So, divided by 4. So you kind of just need to know the metrics to figure out your numbers. But basically, and that's with an average of 10 people coming into an open house. But guess what? You're going to have somewhere you get 2, and you're going to have somewhere you get 30. So you just need to be calculating that and tracking it as you go. But the goal is to create a trackable business, and to do so, you have to have those numbers. But yeah, so open houses are a huge lead gen activity for buyers. What else could be, we only have a few minutes.
Social media.
Awesome.
Like Facebook posts, or if you use Instagram or Craigslist or whatever those might be.
Totally. Great opportunities. Social media is huge for buyer leads.
Absolutely.
But again, quantifiable, right? So same thing. I want you to write open houses on here, but I want you to commit to X amount per month or X amount per week. And with social media, we have to quantify that too. So is that X amount of posts a day? Is that X amount of posts a week? Whatever it is, make sure that your goals and your activities are trackable and measurable. What else?
Flyers.
Flyers, great.
Old-fashioned flyers.
Old-fashioned flyers. But then with that, it's how much either money you're going to spend on flyers or how many pieces you're going to send out. So you need to have that measured as well. What else? Door knocking? Well, I guess that'd be more for on the sell side, but
It's both. Really.
yeah, it could be.
I mean,
for
it's
sure.
both for us.
Yeah.
So.
But then, how many doors are you going to knock a month? So again, just make sure any of your activities, you define the number. And then on the seller side, what are some great seller side lead gen activities?
Open houses, flyers, database, and door knocking.
A lot of them are very similar. Absolutely.
Yep, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you get seller leads from open houses too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
you have your lead gen,
but-
your lead gen system. You can get sellers, for find out what your home's worth, on your lead gen system. That's another way.
But with that though, the majority of the people that come into open houses are not going to be typically sellers. They're going to be people looking at properties. I'd say 80% probably, right? So with that, you have to then think of seller outreach you're going to do before or after the open house. So that means maybe a great way is with your open house, you knock 10 doors on each side of the street beforehand to let the other homeowners know that you're doing an open house at their neighbor's house. If they want to know what their home is worth, feel free to stop by and you'll pull up a report for them right then and there.
Right.
So, but again, couple it, then you can kind of compound your activities together to make them good lead gen for both. Great idea. Any other specific sell side activities? No? What about sending RPR reports to your database twice a year? It's a really good one. You should be doing that. So everyone in your database, twice a year. I say like your Christmas card list. Anybody that you have their address for, twice a year you should proactively send them an RPR report on what their home is worth, and just include a message like, hey, you know, we've had lots of changes in our marketplace, thought you might be curious on what your home is worth. Here's a great report. Let me know if you have any questions. Just simple, not asking for anything, but providing value to them. Because the majority of homeowners really don't have any clue what their home is worth. They look on Zillow, and, you know, it's not always accurate at all. And even homeowners who think they have an idea don't really know. For example, I just had somebody that got 2 appraisals on the same house and they came in $50,000 apart. So, you know, value is subjective. So the more accurate you can get them, and RPR is usually accurate within 3%, that's a great one. Okay, so you have your business plan. We're almost out of time. Normally we dive further into the activities for each person, and that's kind of what I would really task you to do, is go home and break down your specific business goals and what activities it will take to reach those goals. If you have questions, Michael's a great resource for that. He can help you. I can help you as well. But with your business plan, I always say to people, like, hang this up in front of your computer and look at this all the time, or keep it in your portfolio that you carry around every day, or your computer bag, because you really need to see, live these goals, and it'll help motivate you, hold you accountable to your own numbers that you set for yourself, and it'll help you keep in mind of why you want to make that much money too, and that goes back to the vision for your business and the why. So keep those things in mind too.
Yeah, now you know, I know a couple of you were in the other class, but this is the time now that you really commit. So now you got a plan. You have a number and a goal that you want to reach for, so it's time to commit to it. And not just commit from your mind, but commit from your heart, and after you commit, you got to believe you can do it. Then you get focused is the next part. Get focused on what it is that you want to do. All right, have a clear mental vision of this in your mind, that you're going to reach this goal in 12 months. So be clear on what you're going to do. You've defined some business activities, both seller side and buyer side. Now you got to get consistent with it. So get consistent with those activities. If there's classes on it, take the classes. Get knowledge. Ask. There's so many different resources here at the brokerage for you to plug into. So many different people you can reach out to get your questions answered. So get focused, get clear, and then be consistent. All right? Take action. Get after it. Again, if there's books on it, if there's classes on it, start learning about those activities that you're doing. Don't spread yourself too thin by doing too many things at one time. Focus on the ones that you committed to here on the form and go after those before you add something else. Okay? Any questions? No?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm staying.
Yeah.
It's new to know that.
It does. I feel like most people, you know, were off. Like Jermaine said, he was off by 4 houses. You were off by 5, right?
I said 30 to 35, I need 36.
Okay.
So I was kind of close, but I wasn't taking into, I wasn't really taking into expenses, such as, you know, your business expenses.
Most people don't.
So.
Yeah, which can be significant, especially if you do marketing or have, you know, different technology that you utilize.
And I was calculating previously when I was doing it, I was calculating my tax rate lower, not thinking that we're going into a higher income bracket.
Yeah.
So that changed it as well.
It does, yeah, and it's important. Most people, you know, don't think of it that way because you come from a job usually where you have money taken out of your check and you're paying your taxes, you know, all this stuff ahead of time. But as a realtor and as a business owner, if you're not planning for all that, it can really hurt you at the end of the year. So with this, I really like to, like I said, kind of overestimate and make more money, but by overestimating now, your goals will be a little higher, so you'll hustle a little harder. So
And then when you get your numbers at the end of the year or during the year, you'll be able to refine that so that you know what they are. And then pretty soon it'll be habit. You'll just know every year exactly what you got to do.
Yeah.
The other thing I did differently is when I calculated what we needed to make previously at home, I knew that our price point was higher than the 275, so that changed my numbers as well.
Yeah.
So if I were to go back and do it with our average sale price is 300, it would have changed those numbers.
Yeah.
So.
And that, you know, that's why it's really important to know what kind of where you're working at. But it's hard. It's easier, I'd say, to know what your average price point is if you're doing the same type of like buyer lead gen activities. But if you're not, if you're a heavy database or friends and family, they're gonna be buying at all different price
Right.
points. So it depends again on where your business comes from. So not
Right,
everyone's gonna be the same on that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll vary year after year.
Yeah.
You might be average price point $389 this year, and the next year it might be $425, the next year might be
Exactly.
$275.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very true.
Well, thank you guys. Have an
Well,
awesome
thank you
day.
very much for all the
Yeah.
information.
I
Of
need
course.
20 dollars, I need 25.
Okay.
That's what I learned.
Well, so that's 20% more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as Sky Slopes open, I'll be able to.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
Alright.
know.
We're hustling.
Yeah, and all that extra stuff people forget about. It's like a gym. You pay these monthly expenses and you don't realize what you're
Alright,
paying,
have
you
a
know?
good day.
Well, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Have an awesome day.
Oh, just wanted to ask you more about lending.
Yeah. Sure.
So what do I have to do to get you guys future rent, like comps? Do you guys do that yourself, or do I provide that, or?
Usually, yeah, the agent provides it to us. So that would be helpful if you can pull it for us.
So I'm guessing you guys only loan like 20% or 80% of the.
Yeah.
Because
That's
of
pretty
investment property.
standard.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some times where we can make obviously exceptions depending on assets and other, things that we can look at the kind of their whole financial picture.
Mhm.
And then sometimes underwriters will allow for certain things, but for the most part, yeah.
20%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright.
How's everything else going for you?
Going good, winning stuff every day.
I
Definitely,
know.
I'm gonna get a fixture upper soon. I
Good.
found a hard money lender Tuesday.
How much? What percent? 10?
12%.
Oh, good.
4 points.
That's great.
1 year. So. that's what I'm
Awesome.
looking for. He does want 20% down.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Was it? I don't think I gave you my guide today. Yeah.
Been asking. I would definitely like less down, but
Yeah.
hey, he offers no points. So
No
I did have one already that offered 12.